Mine got so weird and like gods and goddesses and like it's kind of almost cheesy in that like eternal forces of nature. Hi, I'm Allie.
And I'm Sam, and this is the Knit Ritz podcast. This week, we are doing a writing prompt. But before that, we're going to do our reading and writing check ins. So, Allie, what have
Yeah.
you written this week?
Uh, written. Oh, I wrote like 800 words last night. Um, See, I just do single sittings usually. I don't. I think that's all I wrote this week, or very little maybe. Yes, I should always check before this, but now I'm just like, maybe I wrote a lot and forgot. Um, but I don't think I wrote. But yeah, I was working on a scene that I kind of hate, kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's an after battle scene, you said, right?
yes. So my person gets like saved by like a magic thing, and then she's like running around trying to help people. Her magic's not directly super helpful um for like fixing buildings, but she can like lift like earth. So if something's like earth enough or made of bricks or something, she can
Mm-hmm.
like kind of lift them. So she's just like running around doing stuff like that. And then I had her like reunite with her sister, and it just was like the weirdest, hardest scene to write because I could never find the balance of like they're kind of like not estranged, but they just don't know each other that well. So they're both like really glad to see each other, and they were worried. They also didn't like run through the streets only looking for each other. Like they both helped people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Partly, I think I'm not sure because I develop my lore as I go. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think partly because like the worlds, like their abilities as wielders of magic, like part of that whole thing is that they have to like kind of like a doctor, like they have to help. They
Okay.
cannot like bypass people. But so anyway, the reuniting was really weird to explain because it both seemed like they didn't care that much, but they were, I don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like a whole thing. And then yeah, I don't think I read shit except for student papers this week. I read a lot of the readings for this class I'm TAing for, and that's what I did. um,
Nice.
what about you?
I I did the opposite. I did not write. Um, but I'm kind of glad to hear that you make up your lore as you go because I feel like some of my stuff is being rewritten in my head and I'm really really anxious about that and I'm like I don't know
Mhm.
if I like it exactly or if it's going to work exactly. I know I have the like four house system of the north that or like of the what the kingdom used to be and then that breaks down and I'm just not quite sure how to work it out. I know I want it to be sort of fae driven, but I also am having trouble with that. Like, do I want everybody to be fae, but then there's also mortals, or do I want it to be, just kind of like how does the magic work? And like, do mortals have like right now mortals don't have any magic; they're just like straight
Mhm.
humans, um, and they're sort of a side issue within the king. Like, they're just a group of people in the kingdom who don't have powers, and of course they get preyed upon because of that. Um, and like everyone else who's really an active participant is Faye. But I don't know, there's just and then, my characters are Faye, but they don't have powers. And so I kind of want there to be more of like a revealing of like what the world south of the Southern Kingdom is.
Mhm.
And I think by making them having come from a tradition that is similar, it will be harder to explain without it being just info dumping. And so there's a
Yeah.
part of me that's kind of like, well, do I want to make it where they're more like humans with magic
Mm.
or, just kind of working through that problem in my head.
Some I've heard. I don't know. You could also just like write the scene that where the info dap happens, and then just like cut it. So that way your
Yeah.
characters act as if they know understand things. Now, if they're gonna
Yeah.
like think and reflect on, wow, what must it have been like to live through that? Like if it's like that, then you gotta actually have it in there. But I feel like sometimes it can
Yeah.
be just helpful to write the info dump and then just, like,
Mhm.
put it in a different tab on the Google Doc,
Yeah.
and then just, like, pretend that your characters still know all that stuff,
Mhm.
um,
Well, I
un
wrote,
unless
like
it's meant to be, like, a point where they find it out, but if it's meant to be that they kinda know it already or they know,
yeah.
you know.
So I
Yeah,
wrote I wrote, like, all of the background as, like, kind of like a history, as I guess it's like, exposition. Wasn't gonna necessarily use that specifically, but I needed to get it out and was like, "Here's
yeah,
what this is." And so I think I can hide it in strategic places. So, like, I'm thinking of putting, like a royal decree where when she's walking through a market, she sees a royal decree and it's like,
yeah,
anyone thought of housing Turayan Fae are subject for
that's perfect, yeah,
searches, kind of a thing. And so you get some of the words. And then, when she meets Gideon and Rin and Cormac and they start talking more, being like, "Oh, is your family from, are you like Turayan Fae or are you Marorish?" And so then you get some of those words and they kind of ask those questions back and forth. And then you kind of realize, like, oh, there was these four houses and then they split and two went south and two stayed north and then they started
mhm,
different kingdoms and blah blah blah. um and then, she's going to ask a bunch of questions about the south, and so that's when you'll figure out what the new sort of organization in the south is, because it doesn't follow the sort of familial lines. Now it follows production lines, right? You have like a military area, like you have like the
mhm,
stuff that they can harvest, or there's like the education area and the military area, and then you have the royal area, and then you have like the farming and markets, and kind of like it's more organized based on what they put out, what their productions are.
mhm,
um and so, like, those sorts of questions, when she's like, "How, like, do you guys still do this or whatever?" And he's like, "No, there's like 5 districts that each do this thing primarily, blah blah blah." But I feel like I get too logical with it, and then I'm like,
mhm,
people are going to people everywhere. Like, there it's not going to be these hard lines. And so even
yeah,
with the like 4 main houses, which they do follow like elemental style names, I feel like that becomes like, well, over so many millennia, people, intermarriage and things like that. So then it just becomes like those are the houses that you claim that you're from, that your lineage is from, but your magic doesn't necessarily represent that. Because if
yeah,
your father's from Terea and your mom's from Aurorish, then your magic can manifest in either earth magic or water magic, even if you have a last name that's from your dad's line or something. So, but yeah, I don't know. And like I can also see like maybe having it to where like the rules are a lot more strict in the north about, intermarriage isn't a thing. I don't know about between the two houses, but like definitely between what is considered like the Fae and mortals can't marry and have children, right? So like you have to sort of stay with your species, I guess.
mhm,
Where that's not really a thing in the South, right? Like they don't have the same sort of biases or bigotry in the South. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of working through it and not putting any words on a page because I need to just put words on. I just need to continue the
that
story and just
that's
start adding it
yeah,
in now, right? Or like make a note that says, because I've written a chapter already about a market visit, and so I just go back up to that chapter and put a thing that says make sure she sees a thing that says this or whatever. So,
yeah.
but I'm having a hard time with like the moving forward because I keep looking back.
Yeah. I will also say, like, as a rule of thumb, if you're thinking about, like, when you're writing dialogue, if you're thinking, like, how would somebody actually ask this? Or, like, trying to think about, like, a natural flow of conversation. If something is necessary for people to know in order to move forward, the person's gonna ask it. And so,
Yeah,
or the person will feel the need to explain it. And I
yeah,
feel like that's like a decent way to know when you need to explain something. And I just sort
yeah,
of treat all my exposition as like it's a need to know basis. So
yeah.
it's like, nobody's gonna say anything unless you're like, "Wait, what the fuck?" Or, like, unless
Mm-hmm.
it's different, but I feel like it would come up naturally, like, "Wait,
Mm-hmm.
you don't do that?" And, like, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
or, you could find other ways to do that, but I feel like that's yeah, I don't, like, worry about it too much, but also because I haven't developed it.
Yeah.
So
It's kinda nice to hear, like, the pantser version of it where, like, it can kind of create as you go. Because I get so rigid with, like, I need to plan it out, and then I don't write because I'm planning in my head as opposed to being like, just put words on a page, Sam. Like the next scene is them walk is, well, I need to write a Liev scene first,
Uh-huh.
um, of him waking up captured, and then the scene after that is them going into caves, right? Um, and so I'm like, I have the next like 2 chapters kind of plotted in my
Yeah.
head already. I just need to write it, and like I can make, start keeping a sort of, I guess, you know, keeping an eye out for areas where the characters can build some curiosity between each other,
Mhm.
or there can be some hints of things, and it doesn't have to be a whole spiel all at once, right? She can ask
Yeah.
one little thing that's just like, "So are you Turayan?" And they all say yes or no, and then you
Mhm.
get a little bit at a time, like, okay, well, this person, like, or do you remember the split? And then be like, and have like that Lucian moment where it's like, I'm old, but I'm not that old, or
Mhm, mhm.
whatever, so that we can establish like there was a split between the four houses, and like, but I'm not saying, do you remember when the four houses split?
Mhm.
um yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some things that probably that no you'll never write into a book too. Like
Yeah.
I think that's always good to have that like classic iceberg whatever. Not that
Yeah.
you have to, some people are like I have a whole encyclopedia full of things that like, I don't think that's necessarily required, but it can be fun. But yeah. In terms of writing it on the spot, I tend to like it's like there is some kind of logic that's working subconsciously in my brain. Like, for example, like I know that this magic system works by like drawing and giving like some kind of exchange between the human the whatever they are, the
Mhm.
body and the elements or the earth or something.
Mhm.
Um and they like sort of give back and forth to it, and there's something with balance that's fucking it up. And my main character, that's like her one interesting thing about her so far is that
Mhm.
she doesn't follow the typical rules of balance, and people kind of loosely know that that's bad to do, or they have superstitions about it. But
Mhm.
like she's like, well, nothing bad's happened that much, but I'm worried that that's going to stray into chosen one territory, or like
Yeah.
discover a new level of magic territory. And I don't really want to do that kind of thing.
Mhm.
um but that's kinda like my problem, and I just haven't figured out a way to solve it, so I just haven't yet. So I'm
Yeah.
just, like, sort of talking about, like, as it comes up, she's like, "Well, you know, I can do this because I've given 6 times this week." And people are like, "That's weird." But they just kinda leave it at that.
Yeah.
And it's, like, weird to leave it at that because, then me, I'd be like, "But tell me why that works and how the blah, blah, blah." And I think,
Yeah.
I sort of built in, like, there's some level of scholarship, but there's still a fuck ton that people just don't understand. They're like,
Mhm.
it's like a somewhat soft, somewhat hard magic system. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but
definitely took your advice and was like, the things that I was anxious about, maybe leaning into some of that with my
mhm,
writing. And so I was like, cool, we're gonna have some royal decrees. We're gonna have some fucked up shit
yeah.
that the leadership does, and we're gonna have some like stomping on certain rights. And
Yeah, and I think royal decrees are both direct. Like something like that is both direct and not direct. Like it's a
yeah.
primary source, so you
Yeah.
have to interpret it to get
Yeah.
it. But it can also say like, "Do not do this,"
Yeah.
But like the implications of those things that are interesting.
Yeah, I was even thinking of putting it on like a main building, like a kind of like a political building in
Mhm.
their city, right? That she has to like
Yeah,
pass the market's in the center of town, which is kind of the capital of their city or whatever, this their small town. And so like, the courthouse or something, and like she can look at the courthouse, and like it's an old building. So it originally had the crests of the four houses, and two of them have been scratched off. And so she could say something like, I came
oh,
up to
yeah,
this
totally, yeah,
building, and like you see these things scratched off, but you don't necessarily know what it is. Like she's not going to go because of blah blah blah. Like I'm not going Crescent City with it
mhm,
where I'm going to explain the scratchings, but you just know
yeah,
it, right? She's like,
but
oh,
you can be like, "Oh, the 2 old houses
yeah,
are
the two old
still
houses are
there."
scratched
Yeah,
off, and then there's this decree that is underneath, that is stapled, or whatever, posted on this building, and the decree says we can enter your premises whenever, because we're
yeah,
looking for X, Y, and Z, or even like anybody who has magic needs to be summoned for exams or whatever it might be, right? That there's some overreaching that's happening within the kingdom, and that they're being made to feel like they're kind of, that the government is pushing in on their rights. um or that there
Mhm.
maybe it's like a new conscription rule, right, where it's like anybody over the age of something who has magic needs to, report to their town lordship for conscription, right? So then you start to see, like, the king is like taking people for military use, or he's
Mhm.
overreaching somehow and he's like limiting their rights and blah blah blah. And so you already get like, oh, this is an oppressive regime. The king is maybe not that great, even if I don't have the character be like, oh, why is our king so shitty? And
Mhm.
then you can see that there's been some breakdown somewhere because two of the house's crests have been, you know defaced off
Totally.
of a building. And so I'm like, that way it builds it all into it without her just sitting there in her bed one night being like, and then the war, and you're like, that's
Yeah.
so boring to read. We're not doing that.
And you also always wanted to, like, you don't wanna just give information so that people know it, you wanna give information to create, like, tension or to build
Yeah.
things up, so I think
Yeah.
something like that notice will be like, "Oh, we gotta be careful here," and it will
Yeah.
directly impact her actions.
Full, and know that, like, there's already been, like, not only has there been was there 4 houses and now there's 2 houses, but then, like, the houses, like, their stuff is defaced, right? Like they're trying to erase them
Mhm.
from the land. And so that's a whole different level. It's not just something being like, oh, well, we don't talk about them or whatever. It's like an actual, like, eradication, which is what
Mhm.
happens, right? Like that there was this, a sort of a push to get rid of everybody that fell under those 2 houses, and that's
Yeah.
why the Great Migration happened. But, like, you don't need to know that necessarily, but if it comes up later
You'll
when
get
they're
that
yeah,
from
exactly.
yeah.
Because then if, say in 10 chapters later, they start talking about how the South is seeing large an influx in population, then you already know from 10
Mhm.
chapters before that there was something that happened with some houses, so clearly people were fleeing south,
Yeah.
right? You can start
Or
putting those
even
things
just, like,
together.
they meet somebody and they go, "Oh, that's one of the migrants," "They
Yeah,
must be
exactly.
whatever."
Yeah.
Like, especially if, like, everyone knows about it or everyone's like, "Whoa, that's
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah.
that's
Or
serious," like
they see like a group of people traveling and they're like, "Oh, those are refugees," or whatever, like
yeah.
something like that,
I
and
have
you're
some
like, "Oh, okay."
refugees right now, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
something along those lines, or they see a camp or something, just, to where it's like in
Mhm.
passing, but they're like, "Oh, that's rough," or
Yeah.
they run into somebody that's trying to help them or something, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're
The
just trying to
fact
get."
that everybody knows about it without having to be discussed and is, like, sad or angry or upset about it in
Yeah.
some way tells you
Yeah.
so much more than you could ever say in a lore dump anyway, in a
Yeah.
natural way, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's very interesting though,
Yeah. And
like,
then reading, I
oh, yeah.
finished Air of Fire,
Oh, right. Okay.
and was frustrated that I decided to read in the romantic order again for Throne of Glass. And so now I am
Oh,
back into Assassin's
Assassin's
Blade.
Blade.
I'm
That
having fun with
sucks.
yeah, I'm having fun
Yeah.
with it, but I was like, when I closed Air of Fire, I was like, fuck, man, I just want to get back into Rifthold already. Um,
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was not excited.
yeah, we're backing up, and I just finished the first little novella or whatever, the vignette, I
Part
guess.
1, yeah,
Yeah,
the
of
pirate captain.
yeah, and yeah, with the pirates. And the moment that she, like, I guess, kind of starts to like Sam or is worried about him or whatever. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There were definitely some things.
Mm.
I feel like there's fewer connections that I've been making to, like, the broader mass verse in these prequel ones. Um
Mhm.
but there's still some stuff. So,
Yeah.
I also found it really not strange, but in Air of Fire, at the end, after Manon and the Blackbeaks win the war games, and she saved
Oh, yeah.
Petra, um, and so she's in the throne, like, whatever, she's in the hall, they're having a party, and that's when her grandmother gives her the Croken Witch to kill so she can have a new
Oh, yeah.
cloak. And we all like, right, we know that the Croken Witch ends up being significant to her later, but she doesn't know it now. And so the speech that the Croken Witch gives to her, she keeps being like, you weren't born without a soul, you weren't born evil, you weren't born without a heart, you were made that way, you were made, it was made, and they just keep saying made over and over and over and over again. And I'm
Mm.
like,
Yeah,
and
that's
like I
pointed.
yeah, and I'm like, I get that, like, yes, we're supposed to be getting that, like, she, and like her, like, that hard facade has been kind of breaking away anyways, because she has this bond with the wyvern, and then she, she saves people and she keeps doing things that she's like, I said I don't have a heart, but I don't know, like, I got some emotions. And so, like, yeah, it's poignant that she's like, no, you were made to be this way, you were, but it's always in italicized, you were made this way, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, that the italicization.
Yeah, and so I was just like, what are the connections? And like, Croken translating into like cauldron witch. I saw somewhere that Croken witch is like a Welsh word that means like witches of the cauldron or cauldron
Mhm.
witch.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah.
And so I'm like, what do you mean by maid?
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's where my brain is going.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that I start to realize that she doesn't really wrap up in that series either. Like, we don't really know shit about the Ash Rivers or Gallon
Yes, we have
at all.
talked about that before. It was like, whatever happened with that guy?
And then like Vaughn, we see Vaughn once in the whole series.
I know everyone jokes about that.
And so I'm
How he
like,
just like disappeared.
yeah,
I
I'm
think
like,
she forgot. I just think she forgot.
what's this guy doing? Yeah, so there's a lot of there's
Maybe she's a
stuff.
pantser, and so she wrote in some character and just like never properly.
Cannot
That's
imagine
funny.
her as a pantser at all.
I don't think so, especially because she binge writes. I think maybe. It
Yeah.
seems like she binge writes.
Yeah.
Although that can be also a pantser thing where they like, you basically spend like 8 months like planning out your novel and plotting it out and like or writing a bunch of lore and thinking about things, but then you like don't take any of those notes and you just fucking write it in one go type
Mhm.
of thing. So it's kind of like a mix planner pantser because like you don't you just
Yeah.
use the knowledge
I
you've
mean, I did
created for
see her do an
yourself. So.
interview where she was like, I have the next two books like in my head, and she was like, I have the next Akatar like in my head. It's kind of, I know all the things. I just like, that'll be the next one that I write. That was, of course, a while ago, but she was just like, yeah, the next two books are, they're in there. And I'm like, get them on a paper then, please. Thank you. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But I do the same thing. Like, I have six books in my head right now, and I'm like, not really. I have four
That's so funny. Yeah.
because I'm like trying to figure out how to make Ren's a three book, and I don't know that it will be.
Mm.
I don't know that any of them will be real books. We're getting
Eh,
there. They will be. They will be.
yeah. I keep wanting to plan out my series and I go, no, no, that's gonna end badly. I'm just gonna fucking figure it out,
Yeah.
and I think it works better.
So
Yeah.
I have a writing prompt for us, and I shortened it a little bit from what I originally told you. So let's just write a scene where one of our characters or a number of our characters visit a sacred place, or they happen upon a sacred place,
Okay.
and that can
Okay,
help us
cool.
maybe write some lore, do something interesting, see what happens.
Yeah. All right. 10 minutes was not enough last time, huh?
Yeah, let's do 15.
Okay. All right. I'll see you in 15 minutes.
Cool. Yeah, sorry, I was on a roll and I didn't realize that it
Yeah.
was past the 15 minutes.
How yeah, I didn't even set a timer, so I just like just text me and we always
Yeah.
go. How long was that?
I don't at least 25 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. What?
Yeah, I think we talked for like 40 minutes before. I think it was like actually an hour, which is awesome. It's great.
That's crazy. That flew. God.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I might
Yeah,
actually
that's
keep
cool.
this scene too. This scene might end up in yeah.
Mine got so weird and like like gods and goddesses and like it's kind of almost cheesy in that like eternal forces of nature, good and evil. Like it just got like
Nice. I
because
don't think mine's that exciting.
well I think it's I think mine's a little overdone is what I mean. But maybe And yeah, are we gonna read them or yeah? What do you think?
Yeah,
Okay, you want to start? Or you want me to start?
you start.
Okay. Again, no plans.
Yeah, no.
So I just fucking spit something out. What I do though is I do tend to get like a little impression. Like I sit there for a second, I think spiritual, and then I my first thought was light, maybe mist,
Mhm.
vibes. Okay, so
Okay.
that's where my first image starts. And then I just kind of fucking go with it.
You always have so much more, like, description than I do. I feel like mine is always such bare bones, but it's okay.
Well, when we do like an exercise, I think differently. Whereas when I'm writing, like my all my other scenes, like that I was last writing, it was almost all dialogue and very little
Mhm.
description actually. But for some
Mhm.
reason, the writing exercise just kicks me into description mode. Or maybe it's because like the last time it was like describe a favorite place, and this is
Mhm.
like describe a sacred place. So I think that's
Yeah.
maybe why. Okay. The light filled the room like the exhaled breath of a god. Like a mist, it swirled in pooling amethysts and muted blues. The walls seemed to disappear the moment we entered, and our footsteps were both silent and echoing. It felt right in a way she'd never quite been able to explain to Taya. They walked forward into the strange light, but their eyes and ears seemed to dull. The kind the kind of thing Sila would have hated, absolutely hated. But Mina liked the strange skin pricks and the cool wafts of mist or light or whatever it was engulfing her. It just it felt right. Near what had to be the center, they found themselves each sitting, not compelled, but strangely wanting to, though that wanting was simultaneous and overwhelming. Their base instincts were listening here, and with their senses dulled and their minds filled with a strange mist, they were powerless against it. She wanted to turn and see where Ezra must be panicking, but she could not compel her head to turn. He said it would be difficult. He must be regretting those words even now. The humming began high and dropped slowly. At first, it was like a tiny whistle on the horizon, then it seemed to flutter down towards them, the sound at once ringing in their ears and strangely echoing. And as it entered the chamber, the sound was full and sinking and made their blood run heavy, their hearts slow. Finally, it rested at such a low tone that it all but disappeared except for the vibrations they could feel in their fingers and toes. The voice was sudden, as if a heart or a balloon encased her mind. Something seemed to rupture, and then she heard her own voice, though it was as strange as if it were a complete stranger. Hello, Mina. She wanted to respond, but wasn't sure how. She heard her own voice laughing. This is not a time for speaking. I hear all your thoughts, but this is not a conversation. You've sought me out, and you shall be rewarded. This is the message you seek. Their ancient rulers have swiveled in their seats and now offer a coin for some entertainment from your small, disintegrating lives. They have paid for blood, and blood is wrought for them. They have belched out demands to see cities leveled and the greats among you torn to pieces. Their eyes are crisp with undying sunlight, and they feel nothing but hunger. No, not gods. Something lesser than, but somehow more with more power. Something that has made the forces of the land stir in ways we should have never stirred. Truly, we do not understand what they are. We only know what they ask for, what they've paid for, what they have in their hearts to laugh at. Being so strange and natural that the dead elements have resurrected themselves. Eternal winds that once sung us to sleep, kept us in sleep, over and over sat with their hands underneath them while we woke one by one. The sky the sky's eternal stretch shuddered, and brought forth the magic you should have never channeled. I know I seem to speak in strange riddles. It's truly that the forces of nature are frictions that resist sensible logic. While humans tell their stories, these forces simply exert. I only know myself as far as my power reaches. The only narrative I string is the one that my own hands wring. But the merciless, laughing ancients which now demand your end have flipped the balance of the world, and nothing that once had sense has sense. Torrent and edge erupted together into magical and physical worlds, and we who gave you life now leech it. I don't understand anything except that these ancients have broken something so deep that we have stirred to call you to our aid. We did not mean to, it was not our intention. Maybe that too was the whim of these despicable beings. But now that it's happened, we are going to try and find the answer, though we don't know the question. Your instincts may even be essential because these beings do hold unexplained natural elemental powers that should not exist, and yet their actions, their brand of suffering that they impose, is so pathetically, violently human. There is no other way to understand it, even though it should not be possible. That's all I know. We needed you here so you could know that there is a strange and dark set of sentiences, a net of wills that drive the things that torment you. We needed you to know how little we know, and how wrong the world is, even when it's the only thing you've ever known. We know you'll help us because you channel our essence and expel our power from within your own blood, but we know you will likely become some of the millions of casualties. There are not yet answers to your questions. We thank you. We beg your forgiveness.
That's intense.
Right? It got like very like woo.
But like,
But it was like fun.
oh, like the fact that you cranked that out, I guess an hour, I guess we've been writing for an hour, that you like cranked that out and it's kind of awesome. Like mine
That's
is like mine is so simple. No, this is exactly how I would expect gods to speak to. Where it's
that's what
like
I was really focused on is like
you're like,
I need it to both
"What?"
not sound cheesy but also be like ethereal, but like
Yeah.
that's
And
yeah.
like giving
It's a little
answers but
info
not giving
dumpy.
answers. Yeah, but not giving answers at all.
Yeah.
But the yeah, I could see like this being something that someone like us would tear apart and be like,
Yeah.
"What does this mean? What does this mean?"
That's
Yeah,
true. And now I have villains. I didn't have villains before. There they are.
nice. Nice.
Isn't that weird though? Like I knew there was some kind of balance thing and that's all I knew. And then I just it's such a weird feeling. Like I don't, by the way, I wrote this in like 30 minutes and then laid down because I could well, I like sort of
I'm so
exhaust
sorry.
myself and then I have to stop. No, it was awesome because I
Oh,
really
okay.
had to lay down because I'm really tired.
Got it.
And so it was like kind of
And
sick
you're
and I
like, and I just
ate it.
waited for your slow ass to keep writing.
No, I thought it was cool. I was like, dude, she hasn't written in a month and here she is banging it out. Like,
Yeah,
oh
I'm
yeah.
that's crazy. That went by so fast. It felt like 20 minutes. That's
That's the
crazy.
best feeling. That's how you know you're doing the right kind of shit too, is that
Yeah.
you feel, like, excited by it. I tend to write, like, 800 words, and that's, like, my max,
Mhm.
but, I was still thinking and stuff. Yeah, let's hear yours.
Okay.
Okay, wow, you wrote a lot too.
Yeah. The early morning sun did little against the cold, brisk air of the south. It was mid fall, but here winter felt close on its heels. I rode with Wren again, Gideon still not speaking to me after our conversation in the inn. It wasn't uncomfortable to ride with Wren, but I hated the silence. I knew I crossed a line, one that probably broke any traces of trust we had built over the last few weeks, the trust that was frayed to begin with. I huffed a breath and adjusted in the saddle, trying not to rub too closely against Wren. A night on the ground after the one in the inn had been miserable, and my back was still sore from sleeping on the nearly frozen dirt. Everything all right? Wren asked. He saw too much. Too much of me, too much of Gideon, just too much. I'm fine, just tired of being on a horse. I pulled my cloak closer around me to ward off the cold. You didn't seem to complain when you had a different riding partner. Shut up. I rolled my eyes, even though he couldn't see them. You could apologize, he said quietly. I shook my head. How would I even begin to apologize? I didn't do anything outright wrong, maybe pushed him into telling me more than he wanted. No, I would wait. I would give him time. Time to figure out if he was angry or embarrassed. If you told me what you did, I could help. Gods, he was persistent. I didn't do anything. But before I could finish, I spotted something in the distance. What is that? I felt I felt him look over my head towards the horizon and the gleam of light that shone over the trees. It was like a beacon against the dark forest. Tower of the Fates, he spoke. As he spoke, the clouds moved to shield against the sun, revealing an alabaster tower, its tall single steeple sticking up over the tree line. What's the Tower of Fates? It's exactly like it sounds like, a small temple of sorts dedicated to the Fates. I guess it was a stupid question. People still pray to them here? Some people, yes. Do you? Before he answered, Cormac came up beside us. We'll stop at the tower and eat, then we'll fill our skins too. Cormac bucked his horse and trotted ahead of us to meet up with Gideon, who rode silently at the head. Seeing his back to us flooded me with frustration. I would rather he was angry and yelled, but the silence was insufferable. I turned my eyes away from him and stayed silent as we approached the tower. Rin and I were the last to dismount our horses. Gideon was sitting on the steps that led to the tower, rummaging through his sack. He told Rin that Cormac was inside, but said nothing to me. He didn't even glance my way as I took the first few steps of the tower, admiring its architecture. I walked the length of the stairs. They surrounded the tower on all five sides. I'd never seen anything built like that, a pentagon temple of white marble. Each wall depicted a different female. The first was a female holding a youngling. It suckled at her, her head downcast adoringly at the infant. Carved around the youngling was what looked like a rope. The carving spread to the next wall, where the female held the rope in her hands. Images of moon phases were etched above her, and the sundial sat at her feet. The rope continued to the third wall. They were tied around the wrists of a female. Her face was exquisite, just as the first two, but was scrunched into a whale, marble tears carving down her face. I followed the rope to the fourth wall. Here stood two beings, genderless, below the same female that was carved into the previous walls. The ropes were wrapped around each of them, binding them to each other and pulling between their hearts. The female above them smiled down at the bonded pair. Joy and love shone in her eyes. I stood there longer than I had at the other, feeling envious of these two beings. They were clearly blessed with each other. I thought of Maj and Dodge and Liev. My heart hammered in my chest. I looked away and walked to the remaining wall. The last wall was so intricately decorated it made the others look simple. Here a female held a rope that came from the wall before. She was smiling, almost peaceful looking, as she held the rope in one hand and shears in the other. The rope was cut at the end, but around her were hundreds of images, ones of this world: plants, animals, buildings, wine, people dancing. There were also carvings that looked like wind blowing. Above the female was a massive sun with rays extending from it. Flowers bloomed at her feet. Between the images that made sense for ones that didn't, a million abstract swirls and markings that looked almost like they could move. Why are there five? I had heard stories of the fates that the mortals used to pray to long ago, but there were only three of them. What do you mean? That's Ren. Sorry, I didn't write that. The mortals in the north used to pray to the three-faced goddess: dawn, duration, and death. I guess that makes sense for mortals. Fae have five fates. Ren walked us around the tower again to name each of the fates. Birth, a bit obvious, he said, pointing to the image of the female and the youngling. Breadth, she measures our lifespan. Burden determines our lot in life. He continued to the fourth wall, the one I didn't want to look at again. Bond determines who we share our lives with. She's the fate many pray to bless them with a mate. A mate? Like a husband or a wife? Yes, but more. A mate bond is sacred and stronger than love alone. It's said that it binds souls together. You believe that? Ren raised his eyebrows. Most days I try not to think about the fates. Come on. He pulled us away to the last image. This one is beyond. She controls the other world and the one we supposedly go to in death. Skepticism lingered heavy in his tone, but his face held a hint of reverence for these fates. Why is the tower here? It wasn't in a town or surrounded by any other buildings. There were no priests or priestesses. Who knows? It's always been here. We shuffled our way back to the entrance of the tower just as Cormac exited. Eat, we live in 10 minutes. I sat far from Gideon as I took out my meager meal of hard cheese and stale bread. I had so many questions, but Ren was sitting with Gideon. I thought of the fates. I thought of how a tower so empty stayed intact and clean. Did people care for it? I finished my food quickly and could have gone inside, but decided against it. I felt like I would get lost in it, like if I looked too closely or for too long, I would see something I didn't want to. So I pushed my curiosity aside, repacked my things, mounted my horse, and let Ren lead us away.
Dude, yeah, but now see, my thing is like that's gonna have to be similar. Like yours is like a scene. Like that's actually
Mm-hmm.
what I usually tend to write. Is like these sort of practical scenes. I do think your pacing is pretty nice. In terms of like doing things in dialogue and stuff. That's
Mm-hmm.
always I always just write in my draft. Add some movement here or like stuff like that. Because I just it's like hard to think about, and also I'm terrible both when I read, I'm terrible at understanding like what a space looks like
Mm-hmm.
which is sounds funny, but for some reason once we get to like this many walls, I'm like I don't know, and I just like kind of don't care. I'm like, yeah, this is a room, and
Yeah.
I just like I'm perpetually always confused by like fight scenes because of that because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it, but it'll
Yeah.
whatever. But so I think you did pretty well. Like I feel like I was very grounded, which is also hard to do. And some interesting chemistry between them as well.
Yeah. There's
Not
like a
like
weird
hot chemistry, but just like
no,
they're
like
kind of like friends, but maybe like slightly like let's see. At this point, I don't really know. I know kind of
mm,
the how they are generally in the story, but this is like early, so they're kind of like friendly, but like not the little suspicious of each other still.
this is after they go through the Valley of Vision, and this is
Oh, so they are
after
closer.
they're closer.
Okay.
And this is
Okay.
after like her and Ren kind of have a moment and then he gets real
Uh,
weird about it. It's not a
Okay, okay,
sexy
so
moment.
that's the distance. It's like a little
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
awkwardness and a little bit like they're all kind of
Yeah.
weirdly trauma bonded.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like there was a kiss and then a very abrupt pull away, and then
Okay.
she like said some really intense shit to him that was like, you got to get your shit together, my man. And then they share a bed, but like not sexy time, but like he's vulnerable with her in a way that he hadn't been before. And
Mhm.
then he like shuts down and like kind of gives her the cold shoulder. And that's why she's like, are you mad? Are you embarrassed? Like, can you
Mhm.
just fucking talk to me? And like Ren, who is too perceptive, is like, what'd you do? How'd you fuck up? And so that's kind of the vibe.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I like also the tower part here too.
Hmm.
Um, like, it's an interesting so it's, like, kind of just, like, randomly in the middle of the forest? Or do they know that they're
Yeah.
going towards it, and she just doesn't know? Or is
Yeah.
it, like
Yeah. They know
okay.
what it is because Cormac is, I
Are they
think,
seeking it out?
I might have deleted where like Cormac is like, we'll go there and we'll eat and we'll fill up our skins. I think that got
No,
deleted
he
by
says that.
accident. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's like
So
a
yeah,
resting place, not like,
yeah,
"Oh,
it's
we
like
have
a
to go to the
resting place, or
temple to
it's
do
at
this."
least like a mile marker for them. Like it's like a landmark for them to know where
Okay,
they're
okay.
traveling because now they're past the mountains, so they're in the south. So like they're in
Okay.
their territory. So and so it's going
Is
to
it,
be
like,
much more.
operational?
I don't know.
Okay, so there's not, like, a priest there.
Yeah, no, and that was what she was like, "How does it stay in good condition? Like, there's nobody here. It's literally
Oh.
a ti," and, like, I kind of imagine it being like like the Washington Monument, but, like
Oh,
so, like,
yeah, yeah, that's
just
actually
like
what I
an
pictured.
yeah, like, but, like, five-sided and pointed at the top and, like, just in the middle of the forest for no fucking reason.
Mhm, mhm.
And I
Okay.
haven't figured out if there's a reason or if we're just gonna see it and it's just like,
Isn't that
it's
a
been
fun
there.
feeling?
Yeah, like, and it's just been there forever, and so that's why she's also like, "But it's well maintained, like, it's clean, there's water in there because he's filling up skins, or there's water nearby, like,
Yeah.
we're just
Like,
hanging
"It's
out on
magic,
this."
bro."
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, when in doubt, it's always magic." Um,
When in doubt, it's magic, bro.
mhm, but yeah, she's just like, and, like, I like the pull of, like, her curiosity, but also feeling like, maybe I don't wanna actually look too closely at the fates because I'm in a real shit position right now and I don't really want to know if there's going to be more bad to come or like she doesn't want to be hopeful, but she doesn't want to know, like she doesn't really want to know. She's just like, I think it would be too tempting to ask too many questions. And like you can see that curiosity in her, but also like the weariness of looking too closely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the first time that I've brought up mates.
Oh, nice.
And I
Yeah,
think
I like the
we'll
names for them. That was really those they I feel like they're nicely like the alliteration. It
yeah.
feels both like natural, like that's what people would call it because people like to
Mhm.
alliterate, but also they felt still kind of yeah, it's it hit that ethereal kind of
Yeah.
like it wasn't like
That I
I
did
don't
not
know.
make up on the fly. That has been in my phone for weeks.
Okay,
The names
that's
of
awesome.
them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I just pulled that up and I used that. But yeah, because I was like, I don't want three fates. Everyone does three fates. I was like, I want more. I want five. And especially because there's five, I guess, courts or five districts in the South. And so it kind of mirrors that
Mm-hmm.
like the five fates and things like
Structure,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, the structure of it. But yeah, so I came up with those names long ago and just didn't do anything with them yet. So now I have images.
Nice, that's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
I think the images are cool too. Like they're very interesting and
Well, and it
symbolic
makes
but yeah.
sense, right? Like if you think about like religious iconography, like it's always kind of straightforward, It's like
Mhm.
the goddess of the hunt has a bow, like and or,
Mhm.
the Poseidon has water symbolism. Like it's not they're not
Yeah.
deeply like analytical because
And it makes
they're
sense
they're
to
there.
like channel those things. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's there to be easily recognizable. And so
Mhm.
having them be straightforward and so, yeah.
Yeah. I think there are times when people authors complicate things just to complicate things.
Mhm.
Um like well, my eternal example will now always be Sarah A. Parker changing the name of night and day. I'm like,
Yeah.
we don't got to do that.
We
We do
don't
not
gotta
gotta
do
do
that.
that, or if we do, we gotta abbreviate it because no one is saying Aurora cycle
Mhm.
all the
Yeah.
time. Like,
Yeah,
they're
no.
like maybe they're being like, "Yeah, the ore is long," like, 200 years of or no, like, it's like thousands of years, I think, in that, like, somebody has abbreviated that to the ore,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Or just
something
the
like that.
cycle.
Like, people don't use, like, triple syllable names for something so common. I mean, maybe that's just
Yeah.
my instinct, maybe they do, I'm trying to think of something, but I just feel like it's just not
I don't think they do. Yeah.
yeah.
Not for
Day
something
and
that's
night are
like
single syllable because we say them all the time, and,
yeah.
yeah, but, that is, like, it's too much change, even though it is interesting the reason and stuff, but I just feel like, um, it's
Her
just
book with trying to figure out how the sun moves and the aura moves and all the
yeah,
things, that one I was just like, "Yeah, I'll figure it out." Like, that was how you are when you're like, "Nah, I don't know where anything is. Five walls, whatever."
yeah,
Like, that's
because
how I
I
was with that
just
book. I was just like,
trust
"That's
authors
so."
and, like, if it's important, they'll say more about it and it'll be clearer,
Yeah.
maybe it's just a weird piece of lore type of thing, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm
Cool,
excited
that
for
was
this. This
super
was
productive.
yeah, that was not terrible.
Yeah, and with an exercise, I always get such weird ass, like, things I would never think of. That scene I can already tell is, like, midpoint or later.
Mhm.
It's, like, a long way away because 'cause I'm kinda writing in order. I am writing in order right now, mostly, and
That
that's
was
interesting for me,
that
but
was over 1,200 words.
yours?
Mhm.
Dude, that's awesome!
Hell yeah. Sorry it
Dude.
took me an hour.
We'll have to see how long it took, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
You're
it's,
welcome, listeners. We will be, cutting that hour of silence out, so you don't have to sit for an hour of silence while we typed.
it's so funny, yeah, yeah.
We have a poem?
Yeah, this is a poem that, I read this person's book in grad school, and I just they have a lot of really incredible poems. I think about cowboys and blowjobs. I'm trying to remember something about cowboys, and it's a really that's like what I remember from. There's like this repeating poem that's something like that I can't remember at the moment. But I actually teach this poem in my one of my classes because I
Mhm,
just think it's such an interesting little poem that like kind of anyone can get, but it's like so weird and cool. As once again, I love weird poetry, so
mhm. Well,
yeah, so
I'm intrigued because I know Changeling lore, so I wanna see if it
oh, and
that's
I
where
didn't really kn I haven't really known that since, like I know a little bit more now, and I'm also reading Outlander, which has some of that, but you're the one
mhm,
who had told me about some of that stuff, but, oh, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so it's called Changeling, it's by Hieu Nguyen, um, and, yeah, it's just a short little stickic poem. Standing in front of a mirror, my mother tells me she's ugly, says the medication is making her fat. I laugh and walk her back to the bed. My mother tells me she is ugly in the same voice she used to say, "No woman could love you," and I watch her pull at her body, and it is mine, my heavy breast, my disappointing shape. She asks for a bowl of plain broth, and it becomes a cup of vinegar she would pour down my throat. Every day after school, I would kneel before her. I would remove my clothes and ask her to mark the progress. It's important that I mention I truly wanted to be beautiful for her. In my dreams, I am thin, and if not thin, something better. I tell my mother she is beautiful, and she laughs. The room fills with flies. They gather in the shape of a small boy. They lead her back to the mirror, but my reflection is still there.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So, this makes me think of, and maybe I'm projecting, but, um, when I had my daughter, and my son too, but when I had my daughter, I would still be very critical of my image and would say things like, I don't like this or I don't like that or whatever. And
Yeah.
I started to realize that I had to, even if I'm thinking it, that I need to not say it out loud because all of
Yeah.
the things that I put on myself is the way that my daughter will then examine her own image, right?
Mhm.
Um and this is that. This is,
Yeah.
I watch her pull at her body and it's mine, right?
Mhm.
That she's internalizing all of the things that her mother is saying against herself as a reflection of the ways in which she examines her own body. And I'm like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's I might be mistaken, I think it's actually a gay man. So I think there's some elements of disappointment in that as
Mhm.
well. Um, oh yeah, because it says no woman could ever love you. So
Mhm.
it's I think that's I always thought that was a really interesting dimension, especially in the rest of the book is really interesting in
Mhm.
that terms as well because we're used to seeing it. Like I feel like it's a fairly common understanding. Like be confident for your own kids; they're gonna copy
Yeah.
you. But I feel like it's like an old idea,
Yeah.
maybe even a more progressive idea, but still kind of something we're vaguely familiar with, but packaged in such an interesting way. Like that's where like that those images that are really strong, I feel like kick like they make it from something like, yeah, I get it, talk nice around your kids because they're gonna internalize it to being like, oh, you're taking care of her now, you're giving her a broth, but she has poured vinegar down your throat, and now
Yeah.
you have to deal with it. And like there's just
Yeah.
like, the tone of voice is the one that you criticize yourself and the way you used to criticize me with. And it's
Yeah.
just like both kind of like
Well, and like the ways that we
obvious
think
and
about
so interesting.
ourselves are in the voices of people who have said things to us.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that captures it in a really interesting way. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
just a little
beautifully
poem.
sad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I speak super sad poems too. Or I don't know.
Or gross
I think
ones.
I
There was a
love
real gross one.
images. Yeah. Oh, yes. Because yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like an image first writer always. That's why every single scene, unless it's actually a dialogue scene or I have in mind like some kind of walking or somewhere that they're going, I almost always am starting with like some fucking weird mists or
Yeah.
something. Um.
I need to think a little bit, I think deeper about some of my imagery. I feel like maybe it's showing how much I pay attention to the world around me where I'm like, the sun is bright. As
Well, to
opposed to
be
like or like
that's fair though, like, people that's how people think, so I don't even think
yeah.
that's bad, like, when you said describe some place sacred, I'm like, "Okay, we're doing sacred," and in
Mhm.
my world, not that I knew this before, but I think there's not a lot of sacred spaces. There's
Mhm.
intellectual spaces which are kinda treated like sacred spaces, kinda like
Yeah.
the intellectuals are almost like priests of it, like that
Mhm.
kinda thing, but they're not the same. This is like some kind of deep ununderstandable magic, so that's why I needed to be turned up to like 50,000.
Yeah.
And I still think maybe it's a little too heightened, but I don't really know. Maybe it'll fit by the time it gets there. But yours, like that is how people talk.
Yeah. I went with it's a sacred place because it's a tower, but it doesn't necessarily make you feel like, where it's like
Yeah. Well, in that you can get
churches
it.
are sacred places, but if you don't connect to it, it's just a building or like and I went
Yeah.
with like that. Like you don't really get the kind of feeling of the place until she is like till the end when she's like maybe I don't want to look too closely. Um and like you can
Yeah.
see that like Ren is kind of standoffish about it. He's like I try not to think about them and he like kind of constantly averts her
Hmm.
questioning of like his like what he thinks of the fates and all of it
Yeah.
and
So she's probably
so
not being super reflective, like, woo.
yeah.
She's like thinking about too many other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say also in terms of images, I tend to that is when I sort of self-edit in real time. Like I'll be like, okay, I think it's like a mist. Okay. And then I'll be like, and it's swirling. I was like, no, no, no. And I was like, maybe it's like amethyst and azure. And I was like, too much. And then I was like, okay, maybe muted blues and amethyst. And that's like kind of interesting. But like
Mhm.
just, I sort of that's the only time that I really edit as I write, and then I
Mhm.
flip into a mode and do that. But I think that's what you have to do. Like my
Yeah.
thing, one of my things is like imagery, and I've always like that's always been my favorite. One of my favorite things about just experimenting was like, oh, that's a weird image. Like,
Yeah.
what the, So,
Yeah. Mine is always
so I'm just
character
gonna like to it.
interactions.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
I
like
I'm
what makes a
always here for
story.
I'm always here for character interactions and little subtle things and things that aren't
Yeah.
said and so yeah, so I think that I struggle more with like creating the full scene because I'm like
Mhm.
what is Ren thinking? What is Gideon thinking? What is she thinking? Who's looking
Yeah.
at who? Like that kind
Is
of
it in first person though?
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, 'cause are you gonna do you do POVs in their head right now or
Yeah.
not yet?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you do.
So I have it's mostly Genevieve's, and
Mhm.
there's been like one Liev chapter and a couple of Gideon chapters. And then that will become a bit more balanced as the story goes, as her and Liev are in separate places. They'll kind of bounce back and forth between her
Mhm.
and Liev. But the story also has some Gideon chapters in it as well.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there will be. I haven't decided if like the when they go through the Valley of Vision, I kind of want to write a chapter of each of their point of view. Um
Mm.
so then it would be like a 4 chapter Valley of Vision thing.
Yeah, or you could
Um
even intersperse them, like, you
yeah.
could, like, you know I don't know, but sorry, anyway.
But yeah, so I just haven't figured out. I figure I'll write all 4 and then if I want to move them around or kind of play with
Mhm.
them or if it's
Or just
more of
write
a
them all
like
for
yeah, and so it's not just like one right after the other, but yeah, I do want there's like I have an idea for like a Cormac chapter that's literally just like where like people are arguing around him and he just like hands Genevieve like a glass of wine and then thinks to himself like fucking toddlers, and it's like one little paragraph, that's his whole chapter. Because Cormac's the man of little words, right? Like this whole
Yeah,
time he's just like, we're going here, we're leaving, let's go. Like he's not there's
that's
not
cute.
he's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the idea of him just being like, fuck, this is stupid, and then that's his whole chapter.
I like that too.
Yeah.
And that's,
Like,
like,
it would be
real.
funny to be like, "What? There's 3 lines on this page. That's all Cormac's doing." Like, fucking knew this
Printer's
would
not gonna be happy
happen.
with you. I'm just
Huh?
kidding. So the printer won't be happy with you.
Yeah, whatever. It'll be fine.
He'd be like, "I'll give you a 5." I can't do math, whatever. Anyway, but,
But yeah, just like his whole internal monologue is just like,
that's right.
fucking children. They're
Them
all children.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right? Just like, "Oh, I'm too fucking old for this."
that's funny. He seems cute. Not cute,
Yeah.
condescending cute, you know what
Yeah.
I mean.
But yeah, that's exciting. So next week, what do
Oh,
we wanna talk do we wanna analyze the cover next week?
whoa, sorry, I forgot. Okay, that I don't know what to say about the cover because
Mhm.
okay, you better believe when Harry Potter was coming out, I was like, "Let's go, we're doing this," and I was like
Mhm.
all about it. And those covers, so that like the drips and the colors, and there's like the grayscale. I feel like there's so much hard to pull from, even though I
Yeah.
am that bitch usually. I am like
Mhm.
about it.
Do you want to should we are you interested in reading the summary? Did you want to read the back of the book or no?
Oh, there's a back of the book.
There's a back of the book.
Ah, okay. Yeah, normally I don't like to, but in a series that is
Mhm.
forthcoming, we can do that. Okay, cool. That sounds fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out who the freaking god and goddesses are again for that series. I'm gonna have to look that
I'm
up.
I'm fresh on it.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So keep reading,
Keep writing.
and we'll see you
See
next
you
week.
next week.